We're live. Hi, everyone. I am here with Aaron Russell. Hi, Aaron.
Very.
We are going to talk about what it was like for an Australian to go to the WTC. Basically, this is a what did we learn, both the Europeans and the Aussies? What did we learn about how we play and how it all played out and what it's like to play in a team tournament? So, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on. And I have to say,
Sure.
congratulations for being the best individual player at the WTC. I know it doesn't matter as much as an individual tournament, but for me it matters. Aaron came above me, so that matters quite a lot. I still need that game, Aaron. um, yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, we didn't
thank
get
you.
matchup. There was something with the matchup process when my team was playing Aaron, where I ended up in the wrong pool from Aaron, so that you guys could determine the other pool and we could determine who I was playing, but we couldn't match anyway. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I
so
threw it out there.
yeah, you did. I did as well, but Alan,
I
my
put
captain,
myself
he
out there.
didn't do what I said. Yeah, that would have been good. Anywho, so what was it like actually to travel and to go to Europe with a whole team of Australians for you? What did it feel like?
Well, uh, the first couple of days, it felt pretty dizzy, pretty tired. My
Yeah,
body was like completely out of whack. No,
yeah,
it was good. I think it was great to finally get a team across, right? Because
yeah,
I know we've tried to do this
yeah,
in the past, and I think it was not last year, the year before, and
yeah,
it was mainly led by the contingent in Western Australia.
yeah.
They were really driving it, and it was in communication with them, and Gorchin actually. I think he's since gotten quite busy with things other than bolt action by the sounds of things. But yeah, it just didn't get off the ground. I think a couple of
Mm,
their guys pulled out, and then I was sort of a bit iffy after that, and then a few things bobbed up for me. So it didn't happen, and then we tried again last year. But I think the whole V3 thing, we were thinking about
yeah,
WoW, but that was
yeah,
sort of just when V3 come out, and
yeah,
I was like, I'm waiting for V3 before I
yeah,
travel
yeah,
20 hours plus.
yeah.
So it was
Because no
fantastic,
one
and
no one really knew if V3 was even going to be worth playing tournaments in. I mean, and then it sort of turned out it was, but yeah, we needed a little bit
yeah,
of time. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, so that's how that played out. And in the end, the awesome part is we got not one but two teams, which
yeah,
exceeded my expectations. For us to pull together two teams to go all that way,
yeah.
and we had a lot more interest than that. Put the call out, and there was, yeah, probably spoke to at least 20 plus people that were either interested, thinking about it, maybe not
Mm,
now, but hey, just keep me in
yeah.
mind
Keep me
for another
posted.
time
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or whatever. So, and then we ended up with, yeah, obviously enough for two. So I'm stoked for that,
That
and it
is
was
that
fun.
is very, very good because you guys, I mean, you were called out at the WTC for being the people who travel the longest, and you absolutely were. So and even like individually because you had to travel from different places in Australia, right? The Western Australian
Mm.
guys, they took one flight out of Australia and you took a different flight. So you must have been pretty lonely during that 38
Yeah.
hour flight or how much that was.
Yep. I don't know if any of our players actually caught the same flight even together. I don't think.
Yeah.
Mm, Yeah, so I think we all went at individual flights, but I was yeah, I'm pretty sure we did, all of us
Yeah.
individually. I just said to the guys, look, the only homework I have for you between now and then, this was about 2 weeks out, is just read the rule book once while we're flying over, and that's it. That's all the prep you need. Let's go.
Brilliant. I personally don't listen to Aaron. That is not the amount of prep you need. You need a lot more prep than that. You need to look over every single listing. Yeah, I over prepped. Sorry. Um, Anywho, brilliant. Okay. So what was it? What was it actually like? Because having Western Australia and Eastern Australia being sort of two different countries in a sense, it's really difficult to get from one part to the other, right? So most of the time you guys are playing in separate groups. What was it like to actually pull the country together for the first time?
Yeah, that was great because the very first time that the WA guys tried to pull it together, it was looking like it was pretty much just going to be a Western Australian team at one point.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, it could have even potentially ended up being like a West and East that was floated. Do we
yeah,
put two teams together and go a West team and an East team so we can that we can practice together and all that kind
yeah,
of stuff? But I just said, nah, I think it's better let's just pull everyone we've got. We don't need to practice in the garage together. Like that doesn't matter.
yeah,
It's more important that we just get the right mix of players in both the teams. We can catch up on Discord or Zoom or whatever, and
yeah,
chat about some things leading up to the event. But I just I didn't foresee how it was going to be possible. I mean, even the East Coast, I was myself and Mike, we're like an hour away from each other drive, and then the guys in Sydney, they're an hour flight away. So like we're
yeah,
not even all going to get that much chance.
yeah,
So I just didn't think that was the way to go. But you're right, like WA is about 4 hour flight from here, and
yeah.
most of the time, like I've never played an event in Perth. I plan to, but I haven't. And this CanCon just gone, our biggest premier event down in Canberra. We
Mm,
had a whole host of WA guys come over for that.
yeah.
Calder, one of our players, came over the other year, and he was the only one. And then this time he brought a whole bunch of mates with him.
Brilliant.
Richard being one of them as well. So that was great to see. I think they ended up being like 4 or 5 guys from
Yeah,
Perth, or maybe 6 even, all come
yeah,
over for CanCon, which is a 60 plus player event.
yeah.
So that was great to see. Yeah, really, really cool. And it was good to just, we went in with the mindset of we've got 2 teams, we've got players East and West making up the mix
Mm,
of both, but we're just we're just going as a one unit, right? We're
yeah,
not like going to lock
yeah,
off lines of communication between
yeah,
each other or anything. Let's, try and help each other through it kind of thing. So
yeah.
yeah, that was cool. I think it
Did
was
you
good.
guys
And
end up going sort of A and B team, like the best place players in one team, and then the second rank in the other one? How did you divide the teams?
uh, yeah, a little bit. I think about 9 months ago, I was kind of like, hey guys, like, how do we sort of decide this? We don't really have like a ranking system, and 4 or 5 of the guys just popped up in the chat and said, "You decide. You should be the one deciding." So I'm like, "Oh, we'll see how we go.
Oh,
I'll
the
try
curse
and
of
work
being
it out."
Captain Aaron. That means that you are the
Um,
dictator,
well,
right?
I wasn't
Yeah,
captain at that point,
yeah,
but yeah, I kind of just tried to go off an educated guess, really.
yeah,
I'd played against both Richard and Calder
yeah.
before. I had not played against Mike before this point, I don't think, but we had played since. So yeah, it was kind of just about, I think based on people I'd played and where sort of
Mm,
people generally finish in CanCon standings, or Moab standings as well for
yeah.
that matter. Yeah, honestly, I just took a bit of an educated guess, and
Well, it
we sort
worked
of just
out
went from there.
brilliantly because you guys ended up second place. So I mean, your educated guess, I think, was kind of right. Both Richards and Coulter and Mike were really good players in my
Mm.
estimation. So yeah, I think you picked a team that worked.
Yeah, they went really well. They went really well. Those guys. So did fantastic over the weekend. And like, look, they could have, we could have easily had mixed up some of the players even between sort of Oz 1 and 2. Yeah, I mean those guys did really well as well. And I think,
Mm,
yeah, it was partly also I asked everyone to put, hey, what armies do you have?
yeah,
What can you play? So there
yeah,
was a little bit of that as well.
yeah.
Um,
Because
yeah,
it is a little bit
which.
of who can afford to go and what armies do you have so that we can match up everything right? Um,
Mhm.
it is a little bit of that. Sure. So, what other lessons do you think we can take away from this about team play, about playing as a team?
Mm. It's really hard because you're a team, but you're just a team made up of individuals that can't really influence each other's games.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not like you can send over an artillery bombardment.
Which would be cool, by the way. For anyone thinking about a nice, cool mechanic.
I've heard, yeah, they had an event actually in Australia one time where you could do that. It was like the Axis versus the Allies, and if you had your forward observer, you could call in one on a table like on the other side next to you and all that kind of stuff.
Brilliant.
But no, anyway, so you can't really do that obviously in WTC, right?
Yeah.
So it's really hard to work as a team in the games. Yeah. You've really just got to sort of try and share knowledge, which is what I tried to do. But I was pretty mindful of, I didn't want to like have the guys just trying to play the way necessarily I play, just because I'm the captain or whatever. Like I wanted them to stick to what they know and when they feel like they're in the zone and that they're comfortable doing. So yeah, I was just trying to share knowledge, and that was about it really. Like it's really hard. Like you just can't. You've just got to all play your best, and hopefully you get the result. Like that's kind of what we did for the most part, I think. It is really hard, yeah. But sharing knowledge. There was a couple of times before the games though, like I would say, okay, this mission, or even before the missions, like a week before, we sort of caught up, and I'm like, all right, this is what you need to do for these missions. This is the way to play it, and this is also what I believe based on my knowledge of playing a couple of times in Europe, but also what we saw at WoW, because we had a little bit of a look right at the WoW lists, so we knew what people were playing, and that seemed to carry on in some of those consecutive events that followed. So I was like, these are the lists that people are probably going to be playing, and they were. They were pretty much the same. They were the armor platoons, tanks, people spending less on infantry, no one really using soft skin transports anymore, that kind of stuff. So I was like, look, this is what you probably expect to see. This is how they'll probably play these missions. And this is what I would recommend doing in this mission, this mission, this mission, and this mission. And basically, that's kind of the way we attacked it. And then depending on our matchup, like each round, I would just sort of go, look, I would just quickly try and think of what's something that if I was them, I would want to know. All right, this is probably some information you might want to know. So I don't know. What about you guys?
Well, since I wasn't captaining, I had a very different role, because what you're saying here is very reminiscent of what I usually do as a captain. But I wasn't captain I was playing for the Americans, right? So I was trying to give advice to my captain, and he wasn't at all doing like, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. He was listening to advice from the guys, from me and from Corey, the other guy who also did really well on my team, and from Ken, and then as a team we more decided. So we became a little bit of a democracy during like our game, and instead of having one guy as the dictator, which I'm more used to. My Danish teams quite often just say, "Oh, you decide. What do I need to do?" And I'm like, and then I have to decide, right? But we became a democracy, and that was kind of different. So, and we bounced ideas off each other about the missions all the time. We also had that extra list. For us, it was a Hungarian list that we sometimes would have Alan play, and sometimes Corey would play it. So we all decided in common about when that list was going to go on the table instead of one of the other lists, if it was just good for the mission or not. So very different experience for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I think the one thing I was mindful of is like I didn't want to like just put too much on their plate, and like they know how to play, and you can't sort of do too much in you know, 10 seconds before a game or 2 minutes before a game, it's just sort of like, hey, good luck. Go well.
See you on the other side. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the matchup system? Because I've gotten it wrong when I talked to, I think it was I was sitting at breakfast one morning talking to Richard and not Corey. What's his name?
Colder?
Calder. That's it.
Yeah.
And I think I got it wrong because Calder was saying something where at the end they were basically trying to shield you and get the right wins for you so that the rest of them they could just draw. And that wasn't it at all, because basically what you guys were trying to do was to try and match up you against whatever you thought was the hardest game, right?
Yeah, but it's hard to know. I mean, yeah, that was the plan for most of the months leading up to it. It was, I think, for us to have the best chance of winning. And you know, I guess being the captain, I'm like, I'll try and shoulder the responsibility. Like, I think that is our best shot.
Yeah.
You know, like me just taking easy matchups and getting easy wins, I don't think that would have been wise.
No.
You know,
if you can get the win against a harder opponent, then it's better for you.
Gives our team a better chance of winning overall. Yeah. So that was what I was hoping for. But look, it doesn't go according to plan, right? Like you just don't know. Like we don't know half of the players out there, so it's really hard to know who is potentially the most dangerous player on the other team.
Yeah.
And it's also it's really difficult to get the right matchup that you even want.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I wanted to lose the roll-off for the matchup process.
Yeah.
But we kept winning it. I kept winning the roll, and the guys were like, "Dude, you got to roll." I'm like, "Does someone else want to roll this dice?" I keep winning this matchup roll, and I wanted to lose it because that gives me the best chance, I think, to play the list that we want me to play. But it didn't happen, so I'm like, oh. So I have to put down two lists, and I'm like, well, I may as well just put mine out there, maybe, or what do I hold on to it? It was just hard. So sometimes we were just sort of throwing mine and someone else's out there and then seeing what they'd put down. And then I'd be like, okay, well, out of these two lists, which one do you want me to play? All right, sweet. I'll take that one. You take that one.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we worked it. I tried to give the guys good matchup as best matchups as not just for them, but like for all of us. What's the best matchups we can possibly get here? But it's just hard to do, and it doesn't always go your way. More often than not, you get 50% of the ones you want, and then you got 50% you don't. So,
because I remember at one point I had an aside with you where I sort of asked you, did you get the matchups? And you were like, nah. And that was I think part of that the whole matchup at WTC actually meant that it was for me, I felt like it was a huge advantage when you lost the roll off for that matchup process. So we also wanted to do that, but I think we got it around 50% at the time. But
for sure. It was hard. But basically, because I kept winning it, I'm just like, well, I'll put my list out there first. So at least I get to pick one of the two, and then I'll take the least preferential of that pair, and then hope that the other two kind of go our way. But it's just difficult, and you don't know who on the other team, right, is the most dangerous. It's hard to tell. So especially like with the Polish team, I had no idea of any of those four guys. We were just like, oh, let's just go off the list because we have no intel. I have no intel to give you guys. Otherwise, just for the listeners,
captains. me and Aaron, we had chatted a little bit beforehand about who was what, who were the players, because I know many of the players in advance, right? So I had a pretty good idea about some of the teams, but we never got to sort of like chat through all the teams anyway. So so you guys had to make very educated guesses at points, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. But I know a little bit more now. When in doubt, I was just aiming for the captain on the other team.
Yeah.
If I could,
that's
I tried
pretty,
that with the USA
pretty
team.
safe bet in most teams. Yeah. So let's talk about two things, right? I have two more things that I think we should talk about, like Australian meta, because I listened to the HMG podcast with your West Australian guys, Richard, especially maybe, talking about how they were looking at the European lists and going, well, that's not very good. And I remember doing that. I remember doing that before the first WTC in Poland, where we looked at all the lists and we went, ooh, that's not very good. They don't know what they're doing. And you guys were very like, we were extremely arrogant about it in the Danish team. We thought that we could beat everyone, and that didn't pan out at all. But you guys, like the Western Australian guys, they were like, maybe it's us that's wrong. Maybe we don't get it. Maybe it's like, what's going on? So here post WTC, what do you think? Is there a different meta in Australia compared to Europe? And what did we learn about that difference?
Well, probably a little bit. I think I do. I think somewhat of the rest of the world. I'm not sure about USA, but like
USA is different as well. Yeah, true.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But the Europe, including United Kingdom,
yeah,
that echo chamber to me seems quite small.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of similarities there, but also it's probably unfair to not say that because it was a team event, a lot of the teams seem to theme between the 4 players or the 5 lists, right? So it's like that brought the lists even closer together to similarity between them. Whereas for us, I just said to the guys, like, I don't care what you bring. It doesn't bother me one bit. Like, just bring whatever you want to play, and that's fine. As long as you know how to play the list, and this is what you can expect to see over there. And that's the way we went forward. So I did expect that our team would have slightly different lists, not just to each other, but probably the meta. But we do. I think we have seen a bit more of a theme for balance, more tools in the toolbox. I mean, that's something that, especially during V2, my thoughts have changed somewhat slightly on that now. However, in V2, I was always a big advocate for that. So
yeah, you were. I clearly remember your lists from V2, and they were toolbox lists, all of them. Yeah.
For sure. So look, that may have influenced our meta a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it's always been that way. But there definitely were some differences. I think we spent more money, or more points, I should say, not money, and money, because we had to buy the models.
True. Both.
More points on infantry probably than most people.
Yeah.
As well, total squads and bodies, but and not as many vehicles either. My list when I went to submit it had no armor at all. The USA list I went to submit, and then I asked a question about M3 scout cars as transports, and they were denied from being used as recce, in the recce platoon. So I could only use the M2s, and because I was leaving in like 2 days to fly over, I couldn't repaint these, buy new models or repaint new models. So I'm like, well, what do I do with these stupid scout cars that I can't use now? So I had to change my list and put them into a armored platoon. So they became armored cars instead of transports, and I didn't want that. No, they still had the recce. They were just armored car, but it's not really a tank platoon as such, and I only did it because I had to. But the original list had no armored platoon at all. So we definitely see a bit of a difference, I think, for sure.
You said that your thoughts have changed a little bit about this. What are you thinking now?
Well, I still think it all depends on the event, the points level, the mission set that they've given us, and if it's a solo event or a team event. Team events, you can get away with, in my opinion, a list that I would never play otherwise. I would never take some of those lists to a solo event. but you could. And look, a caveat, and I will say this: I think that any list can win a game. I don't think bold action is one of those games where you're out of it from the get go.
Yeah.
There can be games that are extremely hard, but yeah, more often than not, you shouldn't be out of it. But yeah, like a 34 dice finish list, right? That you guys had. Like, if I played that at a solo event, man, I don't know if I could. It'd be hard. Like, there would be games where I'd probably be playing for a draw, and I've never thought that way in my entire life. If I thought I'm just going to play for a draw this game, I've always just gone for the win. So to even me be thinking that way, like to be like, oh, I can't win with this list. So yeah, anyway, so that's a kind of list as an example. What did you guys want to do with that list anyway?
That list was Corey's brainchild, and we actually at one point forced Corey not to play it and play the Hungarians because it was a kill point mission. And he was not happy about that. And I think in retrospect, we should have let him play the Finns because he was doing
against us,
much. Right? Yeah, it was against you. And he was doing much better with the Finns. He knew just how to work that list. So in retrospect, we shouldn't have forced him not to play it. But we thought, 34 order dice, you're going to get creamed in kill points. You're going to lose so many kill points because most of it was komsomolets and small infantry units, right? But I think there's something to being comfortable with the list that you're playing, because all other games that Corey had, he won. So he was doing extremely well with those Finns, even in other kill point missions. And most of the time he didn't table his opponents like you did a couple of times, but he was very, very close most of the time. So I think we should just have let him run with it.
Yeah, interesting.
Even though we didn't understand what he was doing, like I personally thought that there's a couple of vulnerabilities in that list, like against multi-launchers or against British observers. Or I thought that he was going to get killed, but that didn't happen. So
wow, that's interesting. Because that was also priority targets, which that list. It wasn't just the normal kill point mission where you get 1 point per comsom. Each of those comsoms would have been worth 2 points. Which is huge. We talked about it, about the list that we had to match up, and I was really hoping that Finn list got played, and I wanted it so bad. Neither myself or Mike, he had the double observers. So he
played against me with my double observers. So
probably not the best matchup for him, but he would have played a tight formation, dropping his things, and he would have kept it tight. If you spread out against that comsom list, sure, maybe
you're
it
going to get
piecemeal you. But I think Mike could have handled it pretty well, and I could have handled it pretty well as well. So I don't think I don't know. I just couldn't see that. I was hoping it was going to get played. I look, props to him. I would have loved to have seen it. Happen.
Me as well.
But,
actually, me as well.
It would have been
but
pretty
before the
interesting.
game, I was like, Corey, you're going to lose. I was absolutely sure he was going to lose, and he was like, nope, it's not going to happen. I know how to do it. And he got overruled by Alan in the end, our captain, and that was the only time basically that Alan said, no, we're going to do this.
Interesting.
And I think we were wrong in retrospect.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I just because he had Artie as well, right? He had a little flak. So they, there's 3 points in those, picking those up as well. It would have been interesting.
At least it would have been interesting to see how that player with that list would try and win, right? Because it seems like such a bad matchup, but it would have been really interesting to see if he could pull it off.
Yeah, I think that you're right in a player being comfortable with playing that. equally as much as someone being comfortable playing against it.
Exactly.
So if someone wasn't comfortable playing against it, I think that would be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But if someone was comfortable, knew what they had to do, knew how they had to protect their own assets, and then, pull that list apart, I think they could get enough points ahead where it wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just me. That was just my thoughts on.
But that's
on that
sort
list
of
when we lined up for you guys.
that's a really good observation, because it sort of segues into our final point, which is individual skill, if that is even possible to evaluate. Like, now you've been, and your teams have been. How do you think that you are matching up against European players? Who I think some of us have a slightly arrogant assumption that the best players in the world are the European players. At least the Spanish have been evaluated continuously as being the best, right?
Well, I don't know. That's not really up to me to decide, I don't think.
No, true. It's up to the game, but did you feel like you were in a comfortable environment where you can actually play the games that you wanted, or were you constantly being pushed and pressured by opponents who exactly knew how this game was going to go?
Yeah, I'm trying to think to my games. Look, all my opponents were fantastic. I loved all my games, actually. I had a lot of fun. In fact, I will throw a quick shout out if I may as well.
Yeah, sure.
John Ross is the nicest man I've ever played against.
Me as well. Even when you completely demolish his army, he is so nice about it.
He was cracking jokes, and we were like 20 minutes away from, a tabling essentially, and he was just trying to have as much fun as possible with it. But yeah, he was a gentleman, that's for sure. But I really enjoyed. That was probably the funnest game I had, not because of the result, just because of how he was playing him as well. But I think. Comparatively, so are you asking me if I think that the Europeans, player skill wise, are harder than people in Australia? Is that essentially?
A little bit, yeah. Because we played the Australians, right? I beat Mike, but I didn't get to watch the rest of your guys' game. Obviously, you did well. You came second, right? But I didn't get to see the game, so I have no idea. Because the Australian meta has been sort of a little bit isolated until you did your first European tour, at least for me. So I'm just wondering if the slightly arrogant assumption of some European players that you guys in Australia don't know what you're talking about, and if that's just completely wrong, because which I think it is, but
Well, I'd say the proof's probably in the pudding, for sure. The guys and the guys that went really well. Mike had a couple of really strong games. I think Cold was feeling a bit sick to begin with.
He was,
and probably by his own admission, maybe a little bit overawed by the occasion on day one, but he really turned it around day two.
He did,
and Richard was probably only a few dice and 5 minutes away from chalking up another 2 wins. So, I was super stoked with the way that the guys played over the weekend, and they did a fantastic job. Especially from the get-go, because we had England 1 straight up, and we knew that they're stacked with fantastic players, great guys, and I'm like, well, if we can pull a draw, I'll be pretty stoked. And the guys pulled out a couple of extra wins as well, and I'm like, geez, all right, well, hey, we're on,
game on.
Let's go, guys. So they did really well. I think the proof's in the pudding, obviously. And I have seen it. I've seen it on posts before, in comments, not even on Australian posts and European posts, where it's like, or on an Australian podcast saying, "Oh, this particular, Aussie meta is soft," and they don't sort of know what they're doing, and their events mustn't count for too much, just purely based off lists alone.
Yeah.
I have seen that before, like even on the main bold action page as well, or on the competitive bold action page. So yeah, I think that's obviously not the case. But as we both know, and hopefully some people realize, the list doesn't really matter as much as what we talk about. And I fall in the same trap as well.
Yeah.
I do, like, and we talk about it because it's there, it's in front of us at an event like WoW or WTC.
It's the easiest quantifiable thing to talk about is people's lists, but we often misread them, right?
Mm-hmm.
We misread the intentions. We misread how good the player is based on their list, because a lot of other factors go into a list than just like how optimized is it. Yeah,
for sure. So I think that's definitely got, that's probably, I mean, as I said, the guys do really well. We obviously Germany won. Congrats to them. That was a really good effort, especially considering Spain had won so many times.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably safe to say, we held up our own with lists that probably, most people thought were suboptimal.
Yeah.
We played one of the other US teams, and they had gone through and rated every single list in the event, and
me as well.
they showed Calder their ranking system, and our lists were rated 2s and 3s out of 5. So my list was like a 3. So I was like, well, okay. And that, but that probably would have been if every team had have gone through and rated us. So what does that mean then? Does that mean we're winning games with lists that are crap? Like,
no,
that doesn't stack
that
up, right?
The readers are bad at evaluating what you're thinking and how you're going to play it. And I fall into the same trap, by the way. I also ranked every single list, but I knew in advance that my ranking of lists was not optimized. It wasn't good. And it was at the end of V2, I could pretty much predict, based on if I knew the player and the list, I knew who was going to win events. But now I'm way less accurate, especially on lists. And I think especially the list that you guys are playing, which is, as you said, toolbox lists, mixed bag with a lot of different tools, they are really difficult to evaluate, because does the player know how to use all these different tools or not? That's what really makes such a list.
Yeah, for sure. I think the only tools I didn't bring this time around was armor.
Yeah.
I just didn't have it. I didn't have the tanks this time, which is pretty funny because everyone had tanks. And nearly every single list I played had 3 or 4. It's probably the only tool I didn't really bring. But I totally agree with you. Like you can, if you know what you're doing, play the mission, you're comfortable, you don't sort of get, scared by, because sometimes you see a list and people are like, oh, I don't know what to do, and they get in a panic and a fluster, and then well, that's half the battle's lost there. So there's definitely a bit of that for sure.
Right. So we are very close to the end. Before we finish off, Aaron, what's next for you, and what is next for Australia?
Well, we'd love to come again for sure. It was a really well run event, and the guys did a great job. And I know that now that more than half a dozen Australians have been over experienced it, had a great time. I know that they'll want to go again, right, to another event. And time, obviously, maybe once a year for a lot of them, and money was letting. But so I know that the Aussie guys will, and others that weren't able to go this time, will definitely want to go again. Whether we can maybe pull one together for WoW in time, I'm not 100% sure at the moment anymore. Sorry, Russ. But definitely next year we'll be able to, for sure. For myself, I may be over for WoW potentially, if we have a team or not. And also, I want to try and line it up with another event around that same time, whether it's English Nationals or The Dutch one, I think, is the other one. And I also want to go to Warzone because I think it's the premier event in America.
It does seem to be the biggest one. Yeah.
And John Ross is a legend. So
he is.
that's probably the main reason, to be honest. So I'm keen to maybe go to that as well.
Yeah.
And do a little trip over there.
Let me know in advance when you think that if it's next year they go to Warsaw, and I'll try and make it as well.
For sure. That'd be good.
Right.
Can make that happen.
Good luck, and I really hope you pull together a team for next time as well. So it was great seeing you guys, and congratulations again on the second place for the team and the first place for yourself. Thank you also for coming onto the channel and chatting to us about meta and stuff and lessons learned.
Awesome.
Right.
Cool.
That's it from us today, and we'll see you another time.
Thanks, Bo.
And